Heal with Divinity. I'm your host, Keerthana Venkatesh, and I'm so delighted to have you join me today for a very enriching conversation about one of the most transformative paths to inner peace and empowerment. This is the Buddhist practice of Soka Gakkai. Now, for those who may not be familiar, Soka Gakkai literally means Value Creation Society. It is a modern Buddhist movement that is rooted in the teachings of the 13th century Japanese monk Nichiren Daishonin, and he taught that the essence of enlightenment lies in awakening our Buddha nature. And what does our Buddha nature mean? It means the limitless wisdom, the courage, and the compassion that already exists within each one of us. Through this simple yet profound practice of chanting the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, followers of this particular practice learn to transform suffering into growth, adversity into purpose, and karma into creative value. It's not about withdrawing from the world through this practice, but it's about engaging with it more fully, more joyfully, and more consciously. And today, I have with me someone who embodies that very spirit of transformation. Sonia Pardesi, an image consultant, transformational coach, and the founder of Sonia Pardesi Image Consulting. While I've known Sonia for several years, I would really love to share here that Sonia's journey has been fascinating because she discovered that image consulting and Buddhism around the same time, and both, according to her, have been pathways to the same goal, which is helping people rediscover their happiness and their highest potential. So, Sonia, welcome to Heal with Divinity.
Thank you so much, Keerthana. I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast, and I look forward to a very enlightening discussion with you. And I would love to share my thoughts. So, thank you so much for having me over.
Lovely. So let's begin, right at the heart of this entire story and your journey with the Soka Gakkai. Okay. So can you share your journey into this Buddhist practice? What first attracted you and how did you come to being where you are today with it?
Sure. So, my cousin sister, she resides in Delhi, and she had been practicing Buddhism, this practice for many years. And I used to, whenever I used to go and visit her, I used to see her practice and everything, but I never delved deep into it. I just thought it's something related to Buddhism. But I still remember that I think that this was about 15 years ago, 14 to 15 years ago, and I was in a very low phase of my life. I don't know what happened to me. I just lifted the phone and I called her and I said, I don't know how to address this situation because she's a lot into healing as well. And I told her that, I really need to sort my life out and I'm feeling like really down and out. She just told me, start chanting Namyoho Renge Kyo. I don't know how. It's just so amazing that it just came to me and I actually embraced it without even the slightest bit of doubt. And I just started chanting. I said, I have to do this. This is for my inner peace. I didn't even ask too many questions, and it was so how do I say mystic? We call this the mystic law, right? So it
Right.
was so mystic that within 2 weeks she actually came to Bangalore. She had some she was participating in some drama, a play basically, and then she told me everything about the practice, and we chanted together, and we were so in sync that it just felt like I've been doing this for a very long time. It didn't seem like it was something new to me. And of course, it took about 2 months for a leader from the practice to come and visit me and then tell me a little more about it. And, I must tell you, the first meeting that I went for, and that is a meeting where we invite guests, and that happens once a month. It's a discussion meeting. So, members can call guests and they can come and be a part of it. And then there is a concept study that happens. People talk about their victories, their experiences. So, you want something to get accomplished in your life and you target that as a victory. We chant towards it, and then once it's accomplished we share that as a victory, which is an inspiration to other people. I must tell you, I went for that meeting and it was so beautiful in so many ways and also overwhelming because such high vibration I had not experienced in my life before. I came back home and I slept for 2 hours, but that, yeah, because I was just like, I think internalizing the vibrations of the chanting, right? But it was so beautiful. So there was never the slightest bit of doubt. I was like, this is for me. And simultaneously, it's so amazing that around this time I came across my work as well. So these two things happened hand in hand almost. So yeah, there's been no looking back ever since, and I've had so many victories, I must say, and it's given me so much happiness and peace of mind. And I just feel like, we all need to, as members, we profess it to the world, because the world needs happiness and peace.
Very true, very true. And you've said it so beautifully, like, how two seemingly different parts, which one is your image consulting practice, and then, the spiritual practice that you are, and how you merge them both into, one purpose. So
Yeah.
when you talk about the practice of Soka Gakkai in the context of healing, what does healing mean to you? Like, do you relate it to emotional healing or energetic healing or spiritual healing, or do you think it's like a combination of all?
I feel it's a combination of all three, right? Because we go through so many life experiences throughout our lives, and not all are very pleasant, right? So I feel that it's all got to do with your emotions. Sometimes we carry a lot of emotional baggage because of these life experiences. I think it's also got to do with the energies that we have, right? Like so many times when we are in a high life condition, our energies are high. When we are like low, our energies are low. And as a result of which, people in our environment also get affected by our energies, right? And I also feel in so many ways it's spiritual, because the more you internalize, the more you go deeper within, the more spiritual you become, right? And you're
Right.
connected to the source or the universe, what we call them. We call the universe or source so many different names, but eventually you're connecting to that, and that is spirituality. So I just feel all these three factors play an important role, especially when we are undergoing the healing journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, healing is a complete total alignment of, the mind, body, soul, rather than, just a recovery process. So let's go a little deeper into the actual practice itself of Soka Gakkai.
Right.
So in the teachings of the Soka Gakkai style practice, right, there is a lot of reference to chanting, to devotion, and to daily engagement, which is very important. So
Yes.
how does this act of regular practice contribute to the healing, especially at the subtler levels of life?
It's such a beautiful question, and I'm so, first of all, I'm so happy that I'm talking about my practice, because this is the first podcast that I've actually talked about my spiritual practice, right? And I think
Good
the more the
value.
people, yeah, the more the people get to know, I think it is, they will understand what it is about. And so, it's in so many ways the organization is out there. We have universities. It's in 192 countries, right? And yeah, and in India, it's called Bharat Soka Gakkai, the Indian wing.
Okay.
We have almost like what 5 lakh members, and it's just growing. But having said that, when we are talking about the practice, the beauty of this practice is, first of all, it's a philosophy, right? So it's not ritualistic per se, but at the same time, it gives you that, how do I say, the freedom or the flexibility to set your own targets. Because in the practice, we believe that we all have an innate Buddha nature, like you said earlier, which is capable of getting manifested, right? And we have the power within ourselves to transform our lives. That is what we believe in. So we pray to the Gonzon, which is the object of worship, which is a paper scroll which has the entire life of Nichiren Daishonin, the philosopher who introduced this practice, inscribed on it. So when we chant in front of the Gonzon, we believe that we are like the Buddha ourselves, right? And the Gonzon is our life condition. So the practice, what happens with the practice is you can set your own personal targets. We have districts, so we have a lot of, in the city also, we have zones, we have regions, we have districts. So we go within our area and chant with other members and encourage them. So for example, if somebody is facing a crisis or a problem, some sort of an issue, we go and chant with them and encourage them, and we chant for their happiness. So the beauty of this practice is that you're chanting not only for yourself, you're also chanting for others.
Right.
So when I'm setting a personal target for myself as well, I'm also chanting for somebody else who's struggling in their own way. So I can chant for 5 minutes in a day. So we have something called as the morning gongyo, which is the morning prayer, and evening gongyo. So the morning gongyo is all about, invoking the deities or the environment for protection, and the evening gongyo is you're offering gratitude
Oh,
for the protection.
that's so
Yes.
beautiful.
So when we chant Daimoku is Namyoho Renge Kyo. I can, if I want to decide to chant for an hour, I can chant for an hour. I say, okay, I want to, within this particular time, I want to accomplish this, right? I want to change this particular situation of mine, and I'm going to chant 1 hour every day. So I can, of course, divide it and chant. right? I also simultaneously will say I'm going to do a bit of study, and we have so much of study to do, in the sense that we have what we call as gosho. These are the letters written by Nichiren Daishonin to his disciples, and those letters, you won't believe it, Kirtana, are so amazing that they're applicable in today's life as well. Imagine 13th century and even now, so we can resonate with those, because he underwent a lot of persecutions, a lot of trials and everything. People, the government at that time, because he didn't want wars, right? So the crux of the practice is called as world peace, right? I mean, it's called as Kosen Rufu, which is world peace, right? So we associate everything in our lives with world peace. So so we chant, we study, we attend meetings and encourage each other.
No, that's so beautiful. And it feels so powerful. Especially, I loved what you spoke about, um, praying for the environment in the morning and expressing your gratitude in the evening. That's so important. And I think nothing goes beyond expressing gratitude. It's almost
Absolutely.
like, chanting and retuning our own internal
Yes.
frequency.
Yes.
And yeah, so, I think a lot of people also equate Buddhism only to meditation, right?
Correct. Correct.
And many of our listeners also think of meditation or mindfulness when they hear of the Buddhist practice. So, how
Right.
does the practice that you speak of,
Yes.
go beyond mindfulness, and how does it dive into transforming suffering or even unlocking latent potential?
Right. So, first and foremost, to answer the first part of your question, it is mindfulness in so many ways. It's meditation in so many ways. But when we chant, we don't chant with our eyes closed. We chant with our eyes open, because that's when you're in your highly active state, right?
Right,
So when we look, we are looking at the gonzon when we are chanting. So our eyes are always open. So there's a lot of focus that happens when you're looking at the gonzon and you're chanting, right? And also the other aspect to it is the fact that, how do you transform your environment? You're also chanting to change your circumstances, right? We call,
mhm,
there are so many lines that we use, which are written by the Daishonin. We talk about changing poison into medicine, right? So we
okay,
believe that we face so many obstacles in our lives, and the obstacles are not going to go, because it's also because of the karma that we have accumulated over so many lifetimes, right? Which is good and negative karma. So good karma, you're having a good time. Whatever good times that you're facing, it's because of the good karma. But the problems that you're facing or the obstacles are because of the negative karma, right? So how do you
right,
expiate? And we believe that we have so many different karmas that we take on from different births. So it's somebody can be facing a health karma, or somebody can be facing a financial karma, or a relationship karma, right? So you're saying that, okay, if it's a relationship karma, so how do I expiate this karma? So the more I chant, the more I'm nullifying my negative karma.
right, right,
Similarly, the relationship karma can be not only, how do I say it, not only moves into your romantic relationships, but it's every relationship. It can be between siblings, between parents, between friends, between peers, especially even at your workplace. So what happens is, when we chant, when somebody is, for example, troubling you in your workplace, we are chanting for their happiness. Instead of something bad happening to them, you're chanting for their happiness. So what
right.
happens is, you're shifting your vibration. Automatically, when you shift your vibration by bringing in this whole positive thought process, the people in your environment will automatically change their attitude towards you. That's what we believe in.
That's so true, and that's actually even been proven, by
Yes.
psychological and neuroscience studies as well. So healing is definitely an empowerment. It's not a medium of escape, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so can you share an example maybe from your own life, or somebody that you have seen or supported over these last 14, 15 years since you've been in the Soka Gakkai practice, where consistent spiritual practice has helped them resolve what might have first seemed like a very deep or stubborn behavioral issue or a deep or stubborn problem, and
Yeah.
how the energy block has been removed.
Yeah. So, it's so amazing, because in the Buddhist practice, I think we are also inspiring each other in so many ways. And I have seen so many live examples where people have literally been able to expand their life state. So our mentor himself was, sadly recently he passed away, but he was about 94 to 96 years of age. And
Wow.
what happened was with him, he at a very young age was detected with tuberculosis, and they said that, and this could have been very, very, when he was in his 20s, and they said that, you have just a few months to live. And he had encountered this practice at 19, at age of 19, right? So imagine, he was so way into this practice. He's the one who professed this to 192 countries. And can you imagine that he was able to expand his life state till about 94 years old? So you can actually imagine that there are so many live examples of people having overcome their diseases, overcome, or, have been able to really extend their lifespan. People have overcome, financial crisis, like the most, um, the things that, you cannot even imagine that could have, happened. They have been able to just accomplish it, whether it's in their work, whether it's in their families. Of course, we also believe that we all have our journeys, right? Like, no matter what, if you are meant to, your lifespan is up to a particular age, you will eventually go at that age. But having said that, you'll also be living a life which is brimming with joy because of this practice. So
Absolutely.
through my work, I have seen a lot of people also, where I've seen people change. I've introduced a few people, a few friends to the practice, some of whom have been practicing as well, and they have been able to change their life spans, like their entire environment in so many ways. And there are so many success stories. I myself have seen it personally in my life, and I've seen it with the people around me. But we continue to keep encouraging each other to chant more and report more victories.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a very inspiring reminder. I would say that no challenge is too heavy when you meet it with inner conviction, basically. So,
Absolutely.
while we've been talking so far about, the individual perspective, right? Let's shift this to a more collective level. So, in your view, how does this individual practice, shift to the collective when we're talking about environment? And this question is basically coming from the fact that you said that the morning meditation is more for the environment, right? So does healing oneself also mean healing the community, healing the world, or healing the universe?
Yes, absolutely. So like I said earlier, Kosen Rufu, which is world peace, right? So this year we have been having, we chant for world peace every first of the month, right? So my morning gongyo, where I'm chanting for protection from the environment, but I'm also chanting for the people around me, right? Like, I'll be chanting for people in my district. I will be chanting for people who are in my, like, it can be friends, it can be family, right, who are struggling in their own way. So when I am, so like I said, we are practicing for ourselves, and we are also practicing for others, and there was this very beautiful incident of a couple who were practicing together. And I heard this in one of the meetings, and they said, that this couple had, their son was in the ICU and really struggling to survive. Okay.
Oh,
And the parents were sitting outside. And can you imagine, both of them? So normally the first thing that we do is we only pray for that child, right? So the parent, one of them said, listen, I will chant for all the people in the district, and you chant for him, for the son. So that is what we do. Even if we are struggling the most, we are still chanting for other people. So that's how, you create a ripple effect, because those
right.
prayers go to those people. And we have seen that, suddenly people have come out of illnesses. Of course, there have been people who have had to, when they have had to go, they've had to go. But we also chant once they have passed on. We chant for their peace. We chant for them to be born under good circumstances into a practicing member's family, so that they can also practice it right from the time they are children.
Right.
So that's how we are able to create that ripple effect, by chanting for other people.
Yeah, and I think, see, even when it's time for the soul to move on, right? Um, I'm I haven't practiced this particular form of chanting, but there are other healing modalities where we see that if they're suffering, the transition actually kind of smoothens once you start healing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's
So
true. And I think another thing I've realized about, especially about this practice, is that um, we feel that, okay, now when I'm doing something, a spiritual practice, okay, now I'm not going to have problems or obstacles coming my way. No, of course, I feel that we tend to have more obstacles coming our way, because that's how we strengthen our faith.
correct.
We are able to deal with those problems in a better light, right? Like, it's much easier. We get the strength, and we are not going to react so in a volatile way or in a negative way. We will be able to deal with it and take it in our stride. So
Yeah, and I think it also brings in that awareness that you
Yeah,
understand things way beyond what just your eyes see. So,
exactly.
one thing, Sonia, is the fact that people always struggle with consistency, right?
Yes,
So either they feel that they're too busy, or they're not growing enough spiritually, and all this comes down to maintaining a regular practice of whatever form of spirituality you follow. So,
yes.
what advice would you give to someone who wants the healing, but they always have this worry that they don't have time, or they don't have the right background,
Yeah.
to practice?
I think this is a very beautiful question because I think all of us are struggling with this, right? I think consistency, procrastination happens. You know why this happens? It happens with me as well sometimes, right? Because um, we have what is called as fundamental darkness within us. Everybody possesses it. And
Right.
we believe in what is called as human revolution. Human revolution is to transform that fundamental darkness into a more positive state of life, right? Now, it's a huge struggle because human revolution per se is a huge struggle to get there, right? So for all of us as practicing members, it does take a lot of effort because you're putting in a lot of effort to chant, to study, because it's not just because the practice moves around the pillars of faith, practice, and study. So it's not just faith and not just chanting, but you're also practicing it and encouraging other members, attending meetings, and also studying. So all
Correct.
these factors play an important role. And people who are working, of course, struggle, right? Especially even when I have like days when I have like a long day at work and all of that, I'm like struggling to find the time. But you know, the beauty of this practice is that it is not, like I said, it's not it's flexible, it's not ritualistic, that if you don't do it today, oh, all hell will break loose. No, you can do
Right.
it for 5 minutes, but you do that 5 minutes. We call it the lion's roar when you're chanting, right? That 5 minutes will be effective. So when you set yourself these little personal targets, that's when you will be able to also consistently maintain your practice, and then you'll see consistency happening in other areas of your life. So when your spiritual practice is consistent, other areas also become automatically consistent. You get consistent work, you get consistent, like even your relationships are consistently going right. Right. So it's all about your energies at the end of the day.
No, and I think that's such a compassionate perspective that you've taken, and that spiritual practice is more about willingness rather than talking about a person's own
Exactly.
worthiness, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about the challenge and pain, which is something that all of us face, right? So when healing happens through this path, how are we asked to work with challenge such as pain, conflict,
Yeah.
or even loss? Like, is the idea to transcend these? Or do you think it's more about accepting them and then transforming them into entirely something different?
I think it's also about accepting, because all of us have, in some form or the other, dealt with a personal loss, right? And I remember when I actually lost my father, I still remember the kind of support I got from the members. I don't know how. Some members got to know about it. They literally came to the hospital. I mean, I think when they got to know that he had passed away, they came to the hospital. And every single day they would come and chant. They say like it's a 40-day period where you chant for the soul's transition.
Hmm.
And they came and chanted. And I still remember doing it very mechanically because I was not even that state. It was a shock for me. But I still remember that when they would come and chant, I still remember how they came and chanted. And I used to just come, float in, chant a bit, and just go. But that support I can never forget. Right. And I think this practice, and I think it can be any spiritual modality like you're talking about, where it helps you address pain and understand it at a deeper level, right? Like I would be like, you have so many questions when you lose a loved one, right? And especially when it's a parent, you're losing your parent, you have so many questions. Why did it happen? How did it happen? How could it happen? But then when you use faith, I mean, or you turn faith into like an impetus to develop your strength, to work on your strength, I think it's very transformative, right? But what happens is a lot of people, I believe it boils down to faith, because if your faith is not strong, then you can probably go here haywire a bit, because especially when you have some issue or some ailment, people have gotten have been able to come out of things like cancer and all of that through this practice, because they have so much faith in it. and through chanting, and they've chanted so much. I know of people, and that's something that is amazing when I see people chant 3 hours in a day, and they have
Right.
been able to change things in their families, financial losses, health issues, this, that, and the other, and they have been brimming with joy and then encouraging other members. And people do home visits, like I've heard people do 10 home visits in a day,
Oh,
and
wow.
along with their work.
No,
So
that's something very deeply empowering,
it
And
is.
first of all, it's I think the whole point is that when someone starts seeing suffering more as a raw material to awaken rather than consider it as punishment, I think the
Yes.
whole shift comes from there. So,
Yes.
for someone who wants to experience the benefits of the Soka Gakkai practice, what simple step do you think they should take today? Like, is there a mantra or a recollection or maybe like a moment of reflection that you would invite them to do?
Right. So, the first and foremost thing, especially when I'm talking about the practice to other people, is that I make sure I tell them that this is a voluntary organization, right? Nobody's forced into this practice. At the end of the day, if you are feeling inclined towards the practice, then you should come. So, when I explain to them, I give them a brief about what the practice is all about, and the fact that I think everybody wants happiness in their lives, right? So then they're inclined towards coming. So then we
Right,
invite them for a meeting, which happens once every month, right? So if they attend 3 meetings, then automatically they become members. Now there is no thing that, oh, you have to really and then slowly we initiate them into understanding how to chant and how to follow the rhythm of chanting, and how to do the morning and the evening gongyo. And because by virtue of the fact that it is not something that you have to do, people also find it, they're able to find that balance also. You don't, and in the practice they also say, it's very beautifully put, that if you have work, right, nobody is expecting you to leave your work and then do this, right? It's also, you're doing it simultaneously, so you're creating the balance between your professional, your personal, and your spiritual life, right? So we
right,
also say that when
right,
you're cooking, never chant, or when you're driving, never chant, because you need to focus on the road, or you need to focus on your food, right? When you're
right.
chanting, you need to have the single-minded focus to chant in front of the gonzon. So whether you can devote 5 minutes of your time or 10 minutes, whatever works best for you.
But
So
just be focused and dedicated in that moment, be in
exactly.
the moment.
Exactly. So we normally, when we initiate, when we tell people about the practice, we say we send them the how the what the rhythm of the chant is like, and then they can slowly start chanting. Looking at a wall, like a blank, an empty wall, with their eyes open, and then we just tell them how they can chant, and then they can chant to start off with
Right,
for 5 minutes, and then increase the momentum.
right. No, that's so wonderful and it feels so accessible, you know.
It is.
Uh, there's something that I want to close our discussion with today, which is like, practically feels like the heart of this entire conversation. So, if there's one message that you could leave about healing through this Buddhist inspired, path for the audience, something that you would want them to carry with them into their day, their week, even their entire life, what would that message be?
I would say that every single person at some point in time should, probably, I would say, drive or focus their attention towards any practice. I would suggest, it's not necessary, it's just this, but any modality. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we are looking at running after that beautiful car, or running after that beautiful house, or the most ideal relationship or something, at the end of the day, it all boils down to happiness and peace. We all deserve happiness and peace. And because of the fact that in today's day and age, where life has become so complicated and everybody has so many stressors, we really need to be able to channel our energies in the right manner. And I feel that spirituality can do it in the best way. So whether it's pranic healing, or whether it is akashic, or whether it is any other modality, I would say, like, for me, Buddhism has really worked beautifully, because it's, for me, Buddhism is like a way of life. That's what they say.
Right,
And in Buddhism, we say that you have relative happiness and absolute happiness. Relative happiness is the desires to get all those, the car and the bags and the shoes and the beautiful house and everything. That is very important, right? But that, if you have all of that, that can at least lead you to absolute happiness, which is enlightenment or Buddhahood. And that should be the ultimate goal or the purpose everyone should aim at achieving, right? And it can be
Absolutely,
where we
absolutely.
all should look at having our own individual mission or a purpose in life. When you have that, then you know where you're headed. You have the right direction of leading your life. So that's what I would tell everybody, that please have a mission or a purpose and find your path through any spiritual practice that works for you best.
No, I think what you said was so true because somewhere over time we've all started having this belief system that's carried down through generations that if you're going the spiritual path, materialism is bad. But materialism is
Absolutely.
not bad because if you don't have the basic material comfort, how
Yes.
do you then focus on the spiritual? Because then
Exactly.
your focus is again on the material life.
On the material. So that's what Buddha beautifully, we study something called as the middle way, right? Where you're not doing any of the extremes, right? It's not just complete, extreme one side where you're doing nothing and you're just going, living your life in the most, how do I say, very in the most flamboyant way, or the other is the ascetic practice where you're doing only rituals and everything. Those are extremes. We say find
Right,
the middle path, right? The Buddha says the middle path, and that's the middle way. So you're taking
right.
a blend or the mix of both, and you're creating that balance in your life, and that's what makes.
Absolutely. 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 So thank you, Sonia. I think these insights that you've shared have radiated so much of hope and authenticity. And I think your journey shows us that, spirituality doesn't have, you don't have to look at spirituality in a certain way. It can be either through the image makeover that you do for your clients. And, along with that, I personally know the kind of inner transformation that you bring into their lives. So, both of these are reflections of the same light that you do even through your Soka Gakkai practice as well as through the work that you do as an image consultant. And to everyone listening, remember that what Nichiren taught, that if you light a lantern from another, it will also brighten your own path. So may today's conversation with Sonia be that lantern for you, and it's a gentle reminder that peace, power, and happiness already live within each one of us. So until next time, I'm Keerthana Venkatesh, and this is Heal with Divinity. Stay aligned and stay divine. Thank
Thank you
you
so
so much.
much. Thank you, Keerthana, for
Thank
having me.
you.